Too long since we've talked to the great man Adam Creighton in Washington, so let's fix that right now by making satellite technology happen. Great man, lovely to see you again. I'm sorry that you're living under the
Thanks,
wonderful Biden administration who just makes the joint better every day.
Yes.
But let's talk about Australia.
Indeed.
Largest interest rate rise in 22 years. Cost of living will be going up, continue to be going up. What does that say about where Australia's going to go in the next little while? Because a lot of people have never been through something like this.
Well, look, it's the first sign of the great challenge for the new Labor government in Australia. They've really won at a potentially awful time with rising interest rates, with enormous debt, with inflation rising. If you look at the US, you can see where Australia might be in 3 to 6 months. You've got an inflation rate here of about 8.5%, so much higher than Australia's 5%. And the Federal Reserve next week is going to do exactly the same thing that the RBA did just this week and lift rates 0.5 percentage point. And it's pretty much promised it's going to do that multiple times for the rest of the year. So this is going to be a massive impact, say, for first home buyers who are trying to borrow money. It dramatically affects how much they can borrow. And of course, that's going to feed through to the price of houses themselves.
Now, there are things that are cyclical. There are things that are personal decisions. There are things that are the obvious consequences of the stimulus that came as a result of COVID. But it's all now about how you deal with it. I tried to get this out of Stephen Conroy before. You're a smarter bloke than me on many things. Let's say all things. But what is Labor's plan to deal with all of this? They talked about cost of living ad infinitum. So the very obvious suggestion is they have to deal with it. But they can't set the prices of freaking lettuce.
Well, there is no... Look, Paul, there is no plan, to be honest. And you mentioned, talking about energy before, and I think this is going to be a disastrous policy for Labor because they've promised, I think, to reduce household energy bills by $275, I think, by 2030 per year. Yep. And you've already seen household energy bills going up. And they've ruled out nuclear power, which Europe is embracing. I mean, Finland's Green Party even just embraced nuclear power. So even the Green parties in Europe are starting to realise that you can't achieve these targets without nuclear power. And if you try to do it without nuclear power, you end up like Germany and Denmark with extraordinarily high prices for energy.
Well, also, we've lived in a scenario where, fairly or unfairly, people are pretty quick to flip on a government. I think too many people have too much expectation of government. But the reality is the next 12 months, the next 2 years are going to be very hard. But that is also simultaneous with the Labor Party saying they're going to accelerate to renewables at 83%. That means billions of dollars have to be spent by the customer, by the government in that transition. They're just annoyed that the transition pain didn't happen for the last 10 years. Instead, it's going to be the next 8 years.
Yeah, well, look, the transition is just not going to happen. I mean, it's just basic scientific economic fact. The technology for batteries is just not good enough. You can't have a grid that is powered mainly by a wind and solar. It's just not scientifically possible at this stage of advancement. The batteries have to be too big. I mean, to give you a good anecdote, I mean, all of the batteries that the company Tesla produces in the US in 1 year, they would power the US for 3 minutes, right? Just 3 minutes. So, the amount of energy that is required is just absolutely enormous. And people don't realise that wind and solar can't provide it. You can have a bit on the edge, but it can't be 100%. So the transition is not going to be achieved. I can tell you that.
Yeah, put simply, what is the safety net? That's the question, right? So for some people, the safety net's coal. For some people, it's nuclear. For some people, it's gas. But you have to have the safety net. But under the stated policies, they don't think that they need a safety net. And now they're discovering that, it was good to win over dinner parties. But now in reality, you're going to need a safety net.
Well, look, it's just, most politicians don't know anything about science. It's all completely divorced from the actual scientific reality, let alone the economics of the costs. And I think we're seeing in Europe, the Russian invasion of Ukraine has injected an enormous amount of energy realism into the world now, but it hasn't seemed to lap up on Australia's shores yet. I mean, you're seeing huge changes in energy policy in Europe and the US, but seemingly Australia, the Labor Party is still in a 1980s mindset.
Well, and also, I always love this too. We're going to be more like Joe Biden with his 50% thing. He's just stated that. He has to pass it through the parliament, and it hasn't passed. Midterms will mean he'll have no chance of
Nothing
it passing.
has been achieved.
So he can just keep saying these things at meetings. As you say, it's not going to be achieved. Adam, thank you so much. Lovely to reconnect, and I look forward to continue reading you in the Oz.
Likewise, Bob.